David Tulis.
We're always excited at the idea of a local solution to a state problem, a national problem that we think can have maybe somehow only a national solution or a national solution, but maybe there are problems that come from afar, that come from structures created elsewhere and imposed here. There may be local solutions with local people. Joanne Favors is a state representative who has a great interest in public education and is proposing a third way in dealing with five schools here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County that are lagging, that are at the bottom of the heap as far as the state's analysis of its many schools across the state. And they include Brainerd High, Dalewood Middle, Orchard Knob Middle, Woodmore Elementary, and Orchard Knob Elementary. Joanne, welcome to the program. What are the solutions being proposed? One of them by way of state takeover. What are the solutions being proposed out there, and how do you believe they fall short of what the children and families in Chattanooga and Hamilton County need from their public schools?
Well, David, thank you for having me on the program again. But a few months ago, back in April, I think it was, our Commissioner of Education, Candace McQueen, proposed that we enter into a contract with a company out of Massachusetts who would come in and manage the schools, the 5 schools that were on the failing list. They would also have a separate school board, a separate director, and would really essentially be a separate entity. It would not fall under the auspices of our elected school board, which I felt that was not the right thing to do. You should be aware that currently it is not legal to even do this because there will have to be legislation passed that will enable this proposal to be enacted should the school board approve it. I was very, very concerned about this because I received so many calls from educators, parents, other stakeholders in the community. So I came home after session and asked to be placed on the agenda of the school board, and I was received very warmly and explained my position on this. And a group that I organized, Chattanooga Hamilton County Public Schools Coalition, we conducted intensive research on this planned partnership zone. There's not a lot of research out there for that because this company that's being proposed to enter into an agreement with has only been in existence since around 2015-16. And so there's not a track record to evaluate how well they would do. But we all know that it's always better to have local control as much as possible. And we have here in Hamilton County, we have some really, really talented educators, retired educators, current educators who've worked diligently. Many of them traveled up and down the highway to earn doctorates in education, and they do have the solution. It's up to us to allow them to enter into these interventions, to have these interventions. And that is what I am hoping that will happen. And now, since we have a new school superintendent, I did talk with him very briefly on one occasion, and I'm very pleased that he's going out in the community, gathering input from the community. I did not put him on the spot asking him about this proposed intervention, but I feel that it's important to allow him an opportunity to evaluate this process and then come to the school board members and decide what they want to do. But it should be local control.
His next public gathering will be Monday at Clear Creek Church of Christ here in Hickson at 6:30 p.m. That's Monday, 6:30 p.m. at Clear Creek Church of Christ. Go ahead, Joanne Favors.
Okay. As we conducted research about the partnership zone, We found, as I said, that this is not really legal in Tennessee unless you amend the current statute. But my concern is that this would be for a minimum of 5 years. The contract would be for a minimum of 5 years, and with so much going on that we are not able to predict that's happening in Washington, even with the proposal to reduce the education budget by $9.2 billion for traditional schools, that is going to cause some heartache for a lot of schools in this nation, and certainly in our state and local school agency, because we do depend tremendously on support from the federal government. And one thing that keeps being said to be used as leverage to enter into this partnership is that about $10 million was placed into these schools without having a positive outcome. But what is not being reported is that about $35 million was put into the Hamilton County school system during that same time, but nobody said where that money went, who it was allocated to be used for, or nobody's saying anything about that. And that $35 million came from a $500 million grant that Tennessee received from the Race to the Top funds. The Race to the Top came into existence during President Obama's tenure, and this was funding only. And we were one of 2 states that received the first grants that year. And so even though $10 million, they say, was placed into these 5 schools, remember too that over $1 million was not used until the last year or 2, and nobody could say why it was not allocated to them. So we had a lot of problems the last 10 years, and we are having to try to recover from those. And hopefully, with everybody seeming to want to have an optimal school system for our children, what I have found and what I've been told by a lady, her name is Dr. Diane Ravitch, Ravitch, a fantastic lady. She's written many, many books about education. She started out with Senator Lamar Alexander, and was on the right side for a long time until she realized all of this testing and all of this No Child Left Behind really was not working. And she has been an excellent resource, one of the resources, but an excellent one to explain what is happening with this reformation that we are seeing in education today.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with State Representative Joanne Favors. Well, Joanne, the comment you made about the money, that the federal money that's come into the system, 10 million of it in these 5 schools, and altogether the county having received during the same period 35 million with no evident success, suggests something to the listener, and that is, well, it's not really a funding problem. More won't help, less maybe won't hurt. The free market suggestion might be, well, could the schools do better, and would the people in them do better if they had their funding cut in half? Would that suddenly bring everybody to attention to say, okay, we've got less money, let's use what we have well and make more of an effort with it?
Well, I don't think that would help. Certainly you need funding for anything that you do, but money is not the only answer. There are many factors that have contributed to the schools being on the failing list. Poverty and the effects of poverty, that's one of the main issues. We need more counselors and social workers in our schools, in all of the schools. We also need to understand that teachers get tired too, and many of them, the younger teachers come in who don't have as much experience, and they don't have the mentors available to them that they did have 10, 15, 20 years ago. That doesn't happen now. And a young person does not just have to teach. You know, when I went to college, you either were a school teacher, a nurse, or you married a rich man. And it wasn't many rich men around, so many of us taught. My mother was a school teacher, and if you went to college, that pretty much was what a female could do, was teach. But there are many other options now, and some teachers get burned out and move on to other disciplines. So we want to do what we can to recruit, retain, and support our teachers. We have some excellent teachers. I've been involved the last week or so with the opening of schools and just visiting and standing around observing. And it's just been awesome what they're all doing out in the rain with umbrellas, getting the children out of cars and hugging on them. And it's just been very heartwarming. I've been involved with Hillcrest and some of the other schools, and they are to be commended. And they didn't know who I was because I had on my old raggedy blue jeans and T-shirts and stuff. So it was just obvious that the children love them. You can look and see how the children interact with these teachers, and you know that they are doing a fantastic job.
Could you get my listener up to speed, Joanne Favors, on where the proposals stand now? What is currently on the table? I was checking this morning where things stand based on press reports, and Russell Gilbert earlier this year was proposing a 2-year delay in this proposed takeover. What is there? Is there a takeover proposed? What right now is where do things stand as far as the state's pretended desire or stated desire to say, well, we're going to take these schools over ourselves if you don't come up with a partnership plan or come up with a third plan that's yours? Where do things stand, and what is the best argument you can make for your idea, Joanne Favors, that you called the third way?
No, I do not call mine the third way. I say it is another option.
Okay.
It's already the third way is what this partnership is referred to as the third way. The first way certainly was school vouchers and the charter schools. And what I've been told is this partnership is the charter school without the charter. Because as you know, charter schools have not continued to have the support that they had. Even in Massachusetts this past November, the voters voted against expanding charter schools. Here in Tennessee, expansion of charter schools has been diminished, especially in Memphis. What we had was the ASD, our Achievement School District, that the state took over, these failing schools. Most of them were in Memphis, the 5 of them in Hamilton County and several in Nashville. And what happened was in Memphis, most of those schools that were included in the Achievement School District were contracted out with charter organizations. They are not doing well. Vanderbilt conducted a study and said the other option, the I-zone schools, innovative zone schools, that's what our 5 schools were included in the innovative zone schools, are the best ones. And the commissioner already has the authority to approve any proposed interventions that our local school board presents to her. But it seems that she's so anxious, and I understand that you want to come up with unique ideas and all, but it's very difficult. It's the evidence is there. Ever since 2002, when we did the race to the top, no school left behind, we've just had just problems.
This is David Tulis, and caller, you're talking with State Representative Joanne Favors. What is on your mind?
Well, Ms. Favors, you support then, because I have a question, so don't hang up on me, but you support government schools?
No, sir. Yes, I support public schools. Schools.
So you like the old Soviet-style governments. They look like prisons, first of all. And, I've had this argument since I was a kid in school in 9th grade. I could not believe, I'm arguing this in 9th grade to supposedly adults. And my argument was I can choose where to buy my shoes. And I had an argument with my family for years over this because they were brain dead. I could choose where to buy everything, but you can't choose where to send your kid to school?
Yes, you can.
No, you can't. How can we in this country? Don't tell me you can. I have 2 14-year-olds.
Okay.
Because what we need 20 or 30 schools competing against each other, private schools. So when the government steals your tax dollars, let's say in Hamilton County.
Go ahead, finish.
Let's say in Hamilton County, they steal $500,000, $500 million. People need to compete for that to educate children. So next year, I want to be able to go to 10 different schools that are competing for my money and say, this is why you need to send your child here. Public schools are done. I just hope you know that. They're out. In 10 years, they won't exist because of the internet.
Okay, 10 years, we won't have public schools anymore. Go ahead, Joanne, take on these assertions.
I am a staunch supporter of public schools. I also support private schools. I think we have some of the finest private schools here in Hamilton County. So parents already have a choice. But the public sector cannot, the government cannot support all of these schools. And that is what is being done now. If there was a separate fund for charter schools and school vouchers, I would have no problem with it. But just as you said, people are stealing, the government is stealing your money, which I disagree with. I don't feel it is. I'm very happy to pay the taxes that I pay because of the services that are provided to so many people who would not have these services if we didn't have the tax system that we have. So I'm not saying that there are some things done that should not be done, but that is going to happen as long as humans are doing this.
Now, Joanne, in your solution for this this problem of the 5 lowest schools, it seems to be resting on people. You emphasized we have many retired teachers here. We have highly qualified people in Chattanooga. We don't need a state takeover. We don't need a special board. We don't need to have a special district controlled effectively out of Nashville. Your solution, this third way that you're suggesting, seems to rest in a large measure on the individual men and women who would be responsible either as volunteers or through the nonprofit sector or paid on the payroll to bring these schools to a higher academic and moral level.
We have some excellent nonprofits here. Chattanooga 2.0, Unified Ed, the Public Education Foundation. We have some excellent agencies that can assist us. There are many stakeholders in Hamilton County, and we are truly blessed to have that. And so we should come together, and that is what is being done, attempted now, to come together to work for the good of the county and to have involvement from all of the stakeholders.
And that will, as judged by testing, Joanne, that will raise the level of the student bodies in these 5 schools. Is that yes. How we'll know the test
the testing,
will show
you look at the testing, that's in the companies that provide the testing, they make a lot of money. A lot of money is being made for this. Most of our problems came about with the testing because it really had not been dealt with and studied enough. And you won't have, here in the South, when they first started the testing, we did poorly all over the South because we had a different kind of culture. We did not have the schools, the colleges, the schools of higher education, even here in Hamilton County. When I graduated in 1960, there was no public school of higher education here for blacks or whites. And so that's one of the reasons we are behind, is because we haven't had the people, the educated and highly qualified people throughout the years. It was only 1969 that UT merged with UC and came UTC. So that's not been a long time. And because we were a manufacturing city and all you needed to do was go finish high school, really you didn't have to finish high school. When I was in junior high school and high school, people would come from manufacturing plants and give the children work permits, and 15 and 16-year-old boys would go to work in these foundries, and they did fine. But then we looked up one day, we no longer were a manufacturing city. We were a city of mainly tourism. Now we're just beginning to expand with the gig city. And now we realize that we do not have the educated labor pool that we need. And we can't go back and pick that up rapidly. We've got to study this and really work for the good of the entire community and recognize that it is not going to happen overnight. It has to be some time there. We have the new school superintendent. We have an elected school board that the statute by law says we should have. And we should give them the opportunity, and all of us come together to see what we can do. I've gone before the school board twice with information, just information. I'm not trying to persuade them how to vote on this proposal. If they decide they want to vote for the proposal, then so be it.
And what is your take, Joanne Favors, on Dr. Brian Johnson, the new superintendent? Any impressions about him personally or him professionally?
Well, I was impressed with him just for the brief period that I saw him and the times that I heard him on the news and in meetings I attended. But I was very impressed with him, and I think it's good to have someone who may come in with some innovative ideas, and he already knows our Commission of Education. So I think that they're going to work out something that will be acceptable to the state and to our local government. I'm hoping that will happen.
Well, the program's listener, Joanne Favors, thinks that market solutions are better, but if we have a state commitment and to schooling, and we have still there is still support for that system, it seems like the solution to low-end schools will have to be administrative. There isn't a marketplace solution which would let private parties come in and sort of a breaking up of the central system in Hamilton County. That is, that's there. You might say that these secession movements of various towns like Lookout Mountain are reflecting market forces, and the market forces come from people wanting to do their own thing. Well, this is David Tulis, Joanne Favors, State Representative. Thank you for joining us. This is David Tulis. We are looking at the public school sector in Hamilton County, and Joanne Favors believes that local solutions will be better than state takeover, which has been proposed by Candace McQueen, the state education commissioner. We've got some important messages. Do stay tuned here, Nooga Radio, 1240 AM and 92.7 FM. I do thank you for the couple minutes of your time that you have given. Thank you.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader, Nooga Radio, AM 12.